Welcome to another segment of the BYU Management Society's Learn from Professionals initiative. Our goal is to provide guidance to young adults that are either exploring various careers or ready to jumpstart a career. Today, we have an opportunity to learn from a seasoned executive in the electronics industry, Dr. John Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell is the president and CEO of the Global Electronics Industry Trade Organization, IPC. He is the leading expert on solving global workforce issues. He is also the author of Fire Your Hiring Habits. Dr. Mitchell has made it his mission to bring innovative and original systems and frameworks to hiring, developing, and retaining talent. A big picture thinker who routinely works with global leaders from more than 3,000 companies worldwide. He insists that investing in personnel is the global differentiator for companies. He's an action-oriented thought leader with unique insight into the state of the global electronics manufacturing industry from a business, engineering, and educational perspective. Dr. Mitchell likes to solve problems, however impossible they seem. He's an accomplished executive with a strong interest in the challenges facing management and education. He was a founding member of Alpine Electronics Research, a research company credited with introducing navigation systems to the U.S. original equipment manufacturer OEM market. He served as the general manager, director of a global business unit at Bose Corporation. Prior to joining IPC, Dr. Mitchell also served as the CEO of Golden Key International Honor Society, the world's premier collegiate honor society. Dr. Mitchell's academic credentials include a doctorate in higher education from the University of Georgia Institute of Higher Education, a Master of Business Administration from Pepperdine University, and a Bachelor of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering from Brigham Young University. He is a published author. Also, he holds a patent in GPS navigation systems. Dr. Mitchell, welcome.
Thanks, Scott. And if anybody's still awake, hello, everybody else.
So thank you for your willingness to share your expert advice with our viewers. John, what made you decide to pursue a career solving global workforce issues?
So I don't know that I ever set out and said, hey, let's go have a career to solve global workforce issues. Global workforce issues, so in my role as the head of the trade association for the electronics industry, we're here to solve problems that confront the industry. And this is one that has gone on for a long time. And so as one of the challenges for the industry, I started working on workforce issues. And in talking with these thousands of companies, I found that a lot of the things that I was learning and about what they did to solve them and what we could offer as solutions were applicable to many companies. So I kind of stumbled into it, if you will, but education has always been a passion of mine. And so a lot of workforce challenges can be solved through education.
So can you tell us about your own career path and what's helped you to become so successful in your career?
So yeah, I'll give you the very abbreviated story because you gave too much of it already, so people are going to be just saying, oh, we got to hear more about this guy. So I started off as an electrical engineer at BYU, worked at places like General Electric and Alpine, and got to use some of my engineering skills. Found that, I like being a problem solver, but a problem solver not just in the, creating a new device or something, but just problem solving. And so one of the challenges we had was in the IT space, and we didn't really have an IT division where I was. And so I proposed creating one instead of me just spending all my free time doing the IT work. And that's how I got into management. Then I got a business degree, and just kind of having a fascination with lots of different things led me down a very windy path. Right now I'm, the head of a trade association for the electronics industry. 2 years before I was fortunate enough to receive this position, I didn't even know this position existed. So I guess I share that as saying, as part of, the point of us doing this interview is helping people, either enter new paths or you can constantly be changing. You should always be looking to, enjoy what you do. And if you're not, then find something slightly or drastically different. And that's kind of what I've done throughout my career.
So, John, can you tell me what is what do you think is the best career advice that someone's offered to you?
Um, Probably something along the lines of, and it's not like I remember a certain catchphrase, but the gist of it was this: there's always problems to solve. Make sure not only are you continue to do your work, but instead of just pointing out, hey, that's broken, bring solutions when you bring problems to light. So if hey, that printer's never working or it's bothering me or whatever it may be, this, how come we do X? Instead of just complaining about it, sit there and say, yeah, this is a problem. Why don't we do this? Or offer a solution or two along with it, and you'll find it a lot more career enhancing.
I try to surround myself with people that are smarter than me and have them give me great recommendations, and it usually works out well.
It's the
So,
secret to success. That I agree with that 100%. Work with people who are brilliant, and it's wonderful.
so can you tell us more about the work that you do now, about your current position?
Yeah. So as the CEO of IPC, we focus on a few different areas. So we work with literally the entire electronics industry globally. And our primary goal is to help them build electronics better. We do that in primarily four different ways. One, we work with them to create standards by which they manufacture, design electronics. And we leverage that industry expertise across all these thousands of companies, and they work together to give us the best data, the best information that they can so that we can then share those standards globally. Similarly, the second area is in education. So we credential over 150,000 people every year. And we do that. And when we create the training for that, again, we follow the same pattern. We get the information from the industry. We don't sit there and rely on people that, think this is a good idea or just one or two opinions. We literally get hundreds of opinions about how we should be training people and developing their skills. And then we put that out there in many different ways. There's online live, completely asynchronous, et cetera. Then the other area is advocacy. So this is an area that, when I was an electrical engineer, I always thought those business people were, the devil because all they cared about was money. And then I realized after working in my career, it was like, oh, I actually need money to accomplish what I'm doing in business. So that maybe that's not so bad, and went off and got a business degree. Then in joining this group, I had to start working with governments. And I was like, well, if this is even worse, how do I work with government? And in fact, there are ways to do that that can actually accelerate the piece. So in the advocacy part, I work with the US government, the European Union, Tokyo, Beijing, et cetera, to help, understand the regulations or the legislation that they might create, how it will impact the electronics industry. And then the flip side of that, as well, as when those regulations come out, help the industry comply with it as it goes forward. And then the fourth area is solutions. So while working with all these people, we listen for common problems. And this is where workforce came out. There's everybody was saying, hey, we have a workforce issue. Sustainability is another one that we're working on right now. So we listen for these common challenges and then work with the industry to solve them. So standards, education, advocacy, and solution, or C's.
There you go. Sounds very complex. A lot of moving parts. So, John, has your career been on this continual upward path, or have you had to overcome significant obstacles from time to time?
Sure. when I was at Golden Key, I thought, well, we did fantastic work there. They had been losing money for 5 years before I took over as CEO, and my contract was a 3-year contract. We completely turned that organization around, quadrupled the number of scholarships we were awarding, did all these continued growth on like 8 different metrics. We're just blowing it up. At the end of my 3 years, they decided not to renew my contract. And I'm like, what's going on? Suddenly I was out of work, and that didn't make any sense at all. I mean, I had knocked it out of the park. And so that was a long time because, CEO jobs don't just fall off trees every day. And so kept looking and eventually found something that was even better. But that time, and I've worked with several individuals who've gone through this sort of thing, when you're, performing well, but you can still be displaced. I have a good friend of mine who was at UPS, and they just recently laid off 12,000 people. And top performer found himself out of work, like within 2 weeks of, oh, I'm out, I'm done, type of thing. And so you have to have a little bit of that resilience and just trust that things can work out and go forward.
Mm-hmm. So, John, can you tell me, what do you consider to be some of the most significant challenges to the global workforce? We hear about AI displacing individuals from jobs. What do you think are those big challenges that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge I feel for the workforce is keeping your skills up to date, really, because things are changing. Just like you mentioned AI. If you're doing something that's very rote, then yeah, I think AI could replace your job. But really, what you should be looking at is how do you obtain the skills to better utilize AI yourself to do more non-rote or more creative work that takes AI as an input. I mean, I think of it like, originally we used to have these things called typewriters that you would bang away at the keys and you'd slap it over there. And if you mistyped something or found a typo in the middle of a 300-page dissertation and it was significant, you had to insert a paragraph, you ended up typing at least, that whole rest of that chapter over before you had to do that again. And then we came up with a thing called a word processor, which we could insert and correct and auto stuff. And this was fantastic. And guess what? Typists and people taking shorthand may have lost the need to use those skills, but if they developed their skills how to use a word processor, they still had opportunities to go forward. I look at AI as kind of the next version of that, in terms of things like marketing or programming. There's certain aspects that you're going to be able to leverage AI for to make you more efficient. And so that's just one example, but there are lots of areas. So we need to constantly be thinking about how can I continue to enhance my skills? When I talk about the workforce and the impacts of AI and things like that to it, one of the things that the conclusions of one section of my presentation is you can't be complacent about the people that you hire. Sit there and say, hey, I hired this great person with these skills. You have to keep investing in those people so that their skills stay relevant and they can then bring more value to your organization.
Mm-hmm. I think that's extremely important, just continual education. So you mentioned in the electronics industry, specifically your company, that you have a number of certifications that are there. And so how do you see certifications augmenting one's formal education?
So I actually have a model on this that I give an entire blog on. So I call it traditional education on one side and the curated education on the other side. And honestly, I think the curated education is going to completely, at some point, for the majority of people, displace formal education because it's job specific, it's shorter time frame for a university or a college to, I shouldn't be just, I've got degrees here, so I believe in formal education, but really, when I work with these companies around the world and they get brand new people coming out of college, their comment to me is, John, they don't know how to do anything. And that's not really fair or true. They know how to do the basics, but what they're saying is they don't know how to do the job I need them to do.
Hmm.
And a certification can actually give you a more targeted capability to do the job you need to do. I have a number of certifications as well as my traditional degrees. And so
Mhm.
you can get a certification in a matter of hours, and that can help raise your skill level. So as we were talking just before about continually educating yourself, those credentials help demonstrate in certifications that you are actually capable to do the things that you claim you can do.
So specifically the electronics industry, where would one go to find out about these certifications? And what are the most applicable to, let's say, a specific role?
So it really depends on the role. So let's take say you wanted to be an work in electronics assembly. So you create that green board that all those parts fit on, and then somebody has to take all those parts and put them on the board in a proper fashion. And so IPC, the industry's trade organization, actually provides credentials on how to do that properly, how to design for that, how to manufacture that, the way to orient things, and how to tell if it's done wrong. And so you can look to your trade association. The other thing is as you can actually just do a little research about what are the skills that I need to do a particular job I'm trying to get. Software is an excellent example. I mean, if you have a Cisco certification in the IT space, you can be making six figures without necessarily having had to have a CS degree or a computer engineering degree.
Hmm. John, it sounds like you've had a lot of executive roles. And what do you consider to be the most important rewards and challenges of being an executive?
Ah, the hardest part of being an executive or even leading any team is when, even for good reason, even if somebody's done something, like they've stolen or something, letting somebody go is the hardest part because you're impacting those people's lives. And that is never easy, no matter what the situation is. And sometimes there's business reasons that you need to let go. I've had to go through a couple of downturns where we've had to let people go just because the business couldn't sustain it. Those are the hardest things to do in an executive space. Um, I like, not everybody wants those roles, by the way. One of the things is funny, I was being interviewed by a friend of mine, and he was like, hey, how do I get to be like you? How can I get to be in your position? And I was like, why would you want to be in my position? And he said, what do you mean? I said, you have a beautiful family. Do you get to take vacations? Do you get to spend time with your family? I said, I travel a ton. There's a lot I missed out with my family because I was globetrotting, trying to be everywhere to everything that I could. And fortunately, because my wife is an angel and raised our family very well, I wasn't a complete alien to my children when I came home. But there are sacrifices to doing some of that as well. And so you have to understand whether that's really worth it or not.
Mhm.
The advantages of it are, you get to shape the direction of your team, of your division, of your organization, of an industry, depending on what you might be doing. And that's gratifying. I mean, we're going through, I mentioned sustainability earlier. Changing the electronics industry to be more sustainable is globally impactful. That's kind of cool. That's kind of motivating. That'll get you up in the morning. Let me go change the world. Oh, let's do it in 4 different ways. So that's also very exciting.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do with the Young Professional Career Engagement Program is change the world.
That's
So
right.
we're doing what we can there. Um, so tell me about what do you consider to be the characteristics of the most successful leaders?
Resiliency, resourcefulness, and nimbleness. So you have to have a thick skin, all right? Because things aren't always going to go your way.
Mhm.
You have to be resourceful. You may not have the ideal number of resources, the ideal people, the ideal skill sets at your disposal to achieve what you want to. And so you have to figure out a way, by hook or by crook, I think it was the old phrase, to make things happen anyway. So what did I say? Resilience, resourceful, and nimbleness. Things are going to come at you sideways.
Mhm.
and you have to figure out how to react and sometimes how not to react. So you have to just so I'd offer just those three words as things to think about in terms of the competencies you might need as you are looking to be in well, really any position.
So this video is going to be watched by people that are interested in the profession, the electronics industry, but haven't started down that road. It's also going to be watched by individuals that have nearly completed or completed their formal education and are ready to jumpstart their career. So, what advice would you give to someone that's watching this video about how to jumpstart a career, how to move forward in the electronics industry?
And I actually believe this is true for any industry. So if you're looking to enter or switch to a different industry and get going, first learn about it. Okay. If you're going to leap, you want to look before you leap, right? Understand how deep that water is. And if you've decided you want to be a theoretical physicist and you just show up at the door someday and you can't speak the jargon, you don't understand the math, whatever it may be that's required in a particular profession. If you want to go into art, if you can't paint a picture or whatever, or you can't draw or hold a straight line, that might be a challenge for you and you didn't do your research. So first, do your research, understand what the job is. And that doesn't have to just be on Google. One of the things I recommend to a lot of people is find someone who's in that role. Take them to lunch. Ask if you could shadow them for a day. Learn about what the nitty gritty of that role really is. It may sound glamorous in the newspaper or on the job ad, but find out if you're really going to enjoy it because, as I like to say, it's called work for a reason. It's not just, otherwise we'd say we're going to play today. And instead, we're going to work today. And some of it will be very gratifying and edifying, but other parts of it are going to feel like drudgery and you're not going to want to do it, but you need to do the job. So if you're looking to go into the electronics industry, I'd first try to find out what part of the electronics industry, because it's a very large, vast, and complex industry. So that's a difficult question to answer. I mean, literally millions of people, thousands of companies, all kinds of products all over the world. So find out what you are interested in. Find out if you have the capabilities. I would offer that you should look at your capabilities more than you should look at your passion. You hear the phrase, follow your passion. I wrote a blog on that one time saying that's the worst advice I could ever ask someone to do. First, enhance your capabilities of things that you are good at and enjoy doing. And then you can form a career about that. And guess what? You'll end up passionate about it. So that's the way I would approach it is if I'm looking to change career or try to enter a new one, learn about it and then try to find something that I like about that piece and then grow skills in those areas.
So when we are coaching young adults, that's one of the things that we do is encourage them to reach out to mentors. But any other resources, particular websites or books or periodicals that you might be able to recommend that could help?
So for electronics specifically, there's a website that our foundation hosts, which is called Careers in Electronics. It has something like 60 different electronics careers. It talks about how much they make, what they do during the day. There's little video segments interviewing those. So you don't necessarily have to go to everybody and shadow them, but careersinelectronics.com. Okay,
great. And one of the common issues or things that we hear from young adults is they want a successful career. They're very interested in a successful career, but they also want to have balance in their life. So how would you encourage a young person to do that, to reach out, grab those career goals and do well, but also have balance?
I look at balance in an interesting way. I don't anticipate balance happening all the time. It's a multi-dimensional teeter-totter that different pieces come up at different times. And so when you're at home, be at home and be focused on your family and give that all your attention. When you're at work, do that. And you'll find sometimes work will push this way, other times you'll need family to push the other way. And so as with various aspects of your life, balance is not always, hey, I'm spending equal time every day with every aspect of my life, because you'd run out. I assume most of us have probably at least 4, if not 27 aspects of our life that we'd like to have balance in. And so you just don't have enough time. And you have to choose. There's prioritization of some of that. And so sometimes, you might have a higher balance in one area, and then you'll reciprocate on the other. And so if certain aspects, kind of like I was talking to that gentleman about, I was like, look, you have a great time with your family. If that's important to you, a job that's going to take you and give you all this glory and take you away from your family for, 3.5 weeks out of the month may not be the right choice for you if you really, truly believe that you want to have more family time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're seeking balance, know that you can't always have it at the same time, but you also need to choose and understand a role that will allow you to have as much of that balance as you can, or as you need.
So as a follow-up question to balance, young adults want their careers to be meaningful. They want them to be purposeful.
Impactful. Yeah.
Yes, impactful. And so can you speak to that?
Yeah. Agree with that 100%. It helps you get through that drudgery that I was talking about. If you're doing something impactful with your work, I used to always sit there and say, hey, when in one point in my career, I said, well, we're not curing cancer. Actually, now in the electronics industry, we are striving to cure cancer through some of the tools and stuff we build. So I can't even say that we're not working on that. But each organization, if you really are looking to make a difference in this world and work for a company that makes a difference, those are questions you should ask. And hopefully they have them self-evident on their website and in what they do. Not all, you can have a very fulfilling career doing something that may not have on the surface this kind of larger than life objective that's impactful. And yet they may allow you to do impactful things through some of their policies as well. So don't throw away a good, ethical, integrous job because it's not curing cancer, saving the environment, whatever. There are aspects of it that can do some of that are still important. I mean, I'm reminded of the story of John F. Kennedy when he was touring NASA, and they were striving to put a man on the moon. And so he went to NASA to go meet with everybody to talk about it. And as he's walking in kind of the back way, as they bring in the president, he ran into a janitor there who was sweeping. He goes, "Oh, what do you do here?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm putting a man on the moon, Mr. President." Because he got it. Every little aspect that builds, it takes a village, and a team to be successful. That being said, if you really want to make sure that your passion is something that's passionate, find a company that does that, but go into it eyes wide open.
So John, can you speak to networking specifically? How important has networking been to your career? And also offer some advice to young adults about how they can do networking and furthering their own careers.
Yes. Let me talk about two aspects of it. One, I would not have the role that I have today if it weren't for networking. I had a friend who introduced me to another friend who introduced me to the senior recruiter at Korn Ferry, and that's how I ended up in this role. I would have never had that connection without that network that kind of went through there.
Mm-hmm.
I think networking is critical to career finding and career advancement. Resumes are nice, but it's so easy to send so many to so many different places now. It's like, how do you separate yourself? And there are techniques to do that. Some of them involve going backwards and being a little more old school and sending a paper copy to someone with a handwritten note, and they don't really know what to do with that. If it's written to the individual, they'll give it to the individual if you can figure out who you want to get hired by. But the other thing to think about is so networking has helped me personally. I recommend it to every person I know who's looking for a role, is to talk to somebody that's been in that role or works in that industry and find out that path. But networking is not something that comes naturally to some people. I've been complimented throughout my life as, oh, you're such a terrific networker. You know so many people, blah, 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 blah. I think of myself as a horrible networker. I'm afraid to go talk to people. This is not what when you go into a networking event, I sit there and I go, boy, I'd sure rather be sitting in my hotel room reading, because I don't want to meet all these new people. Why would I want to do that? But you practice these things because they're valuable skills to learn. And I had the opportunity to go to a BYU donors dinner. And there are all these people, executives, et cetera. And I brought my niece, who was at that time a current student at BYU. And she was something of a novelty. I think there were only 3 people her age out of, 1,000 people there or something. And our goal was to teach her how to network. And so what we did is we talked to people and asked them, how do you network? And actually networked by asking people how to network, which was fantastic. And so she's getting all these people getting great advice right there as we were networking. And hopefully she developed some of those skills as she went along. So it's important. It's critical.
Critical, right? So finally, in concluding our interview, is there any other career advice or life advice that you'd like to offer to young adults?
Yeah, don't be afraid of change. Okay. Change is always going to be happening. And as that change happens, the way to succeed through change is to take charge of your future. Decide, I'd like to do this, and this is why I'd like to do this. And if your reason is because it looks cool on some Instagram video, that's probably not a great idea yet. It may be a fantastic idea for you, but do the research first. But once you've decided what you want to do, really decide, and then build toward that. Find somebody. If you're interested in electronics, call John Mitchell up and say, hey, I'm interested in a career in electronics. And how do I get into this? Or, this is the piece that I'm looking at. Could you connect me with somebody you know? That's the other trick to that networking piece, back to our previous question. Don't ask somebody, will you hire me? Or do you have a job for me? Go up and say, hey, I know you work or have worked in this industry. Do you know anybody who's hiring? It lowers the pressure on them, and they're obviously going to think of their own organization first.
Mm-hmm.
So take charge of your career, be bold.
I like that. Well, thank you, Dr. Mitchell. We appreciate the time that you've taken today to offer career building advice to young adults interested in a career in the electronics industry or just almost any industry. So to wrap up this video, we'd like to remind our viewers that they can either reach out on their own to seasoned professionals like Dr. John Mitchell to schedule an informational interview, or they can ask for an introduction to that professional from someone that they know. To prepare for informational interviews, we recommend that you watch the video on our website titled Conducting Informational Interviews. So, John, thanks again for your time today. We sincerely appreciate it, and I know that the advice that you've offered will be well received by the young adults and others that are watching this video.
Thanks, Scott. It was a pleasure. Anytime.